Zoax.net. Lesson 7. Positioning. CSS offers several methods for positioning HTML elements. The main method, which we will consider here, involves using the position property with one of the designated values: static, absolute, relative, fixed, or sticky. The default value for the positioning property is static, which we will examine in our first example. In this document, I have put a border around the body element and set its size to 400 by 1000 pixels. This will help us see how the positioning works. Inside the body, there are 4 image elements, each with a 5 pixel margin, a 10 pixel padding, and a 2 pixel black border. Since the positioning property is not set in this example, it uses the default value of static. Opening this document, we see the effect of static positioning. The first image is placed in the upper left corner. The second image is placed on the right side of it. Since the containing element is only 400 pixels wide, and the next image does not fit to the right, it is placed in the leftmost position below the first image. Finally, the fourth image is placed to the right side of that one. So this is how static positioning functions. Elements are placed left to right and top to bottom in the same order that we read. Notice that the 5 pixel margins sit between the elements. Also notice that the bottom of the elements of each row are aligned with the longest element in each row. That is how static positioning, the default, works. If we slide the scroll bar up and down, the image elements move with it. This is not the case with all of the types of positioning, as we will see. The second example features absolute positioning. Everything in this example is the same, except that I added the property position to each image element and have given it the value absolute so that they are no longer positioned statically. Additionally, I added a top and left property with various values to position each image. The first image is positioned at 0, 0. Opening this document, we see the 4 images stacked on top of each other. I positioned the images this way to illustrate that they can be placed on top of each other, unlike how they were with the static positioning. The images are positioned using the top and left values as the distance from the corner with the addition of the 5 pixel margin. Absolutely positioned elements are placed relative to the closest absolutely positioned parent element. So if I had made the body element absolutely positioned, the elements would be measured relative to it, rather than the corner. Sliding the scroll bar up and down, we see that the absolutely positioned elements move up and down with it, much like static positioning. The third example features relative positioning. In this example, the left and top coordinates are the same as the last example. The only thing that has changed is the position value is now relative rather than absolute. Opening the document, we see this. The elements in relative positioning are placed exactly as they are in static positioning, but then they are offset by the left and top coordinate values. In fact, if the left and top are set to 0, the element is placed in the exact same place, as we can see by looking at the first element when we compare this to the statically positioned elements. Like the static and absolute positioned elements, the relative elements move up and down when we move the scroll bar, as we see here. The fourth example demonstrates fixed positioning. This example is exactly the same as the last one, except that the position property has been changed to fixed. Fixed positioning is exactly the same as absolute positioning, except that the fixed elements remain where they are as the web page is scrolled up and down. Opening this page in the browser, we see the elements positioned exactly as they were with absolute positioning. However, when we scroll the page up and down, we see that those fixed elements remain exactly where they were. This behavior seems weird, and it should only be used on rare occasions when it is really needed. The fifth and last example demonstrates sticky positioning. This example is exactly like the last one, except the position property has been changed to sticky. Sticky positioning works similar to the relative positioning, except that the elements are fixed so that they don't scroll off the top of the screen. Opening this example, we see the elements positioned relative to where they would be placed statically. Scrolling the page up and down, we see that the elements move up until they are placed in their absolute position with respect to the window, and then they stay fixed. Sticky positioning is the newest type of positioning, and it is difficult to fully understand and work with. If you feel that you need to use it, make sure that you take the time to fully understand it and how it works.